Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining the Crucial Conversations podcast. And today we are honored to have with us Andeline Razak. She's an internationally experienced and licensed NLP transformation coach, trainer, and educator. She's the founder of Mind Nomads, which focuses on self-empowerment and specializes in working with women from all over the world. In this first series of group coaching sessions for women only, Andeline will demonstrate the importance of creating and maintaining sisterhood circles that provide a safe space for women of all ages to share their stories and heal their wounds so they can live a life that they were created for. A hearty welcome to you, Andeline.
Hello, thank you for inviting me. I'm so excited to be here. For those of you who don't know, you may not, but me and Aziza go back a long, long way. We worked on projects back in London and now we're in different parts of the world. She moved to Ghana and I actually moved to Asia. I was in Singapore and now I live in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. So yeah, it's really nice to reconnect again. Thank you for inviting me into your world.
Most welcome. We're honored to have you with us. Really, really excited.
I'm so happy. And you know, it would be great. I know that it's sort of early afternoon for you guys over there. It's like evening for me, sort of like 8 o'clock, just past 8 o'clock here. So hopefully you've had enough time to maybe grab some lunch or some coffee or something for your day to get started. Do feel free to put on your cameras so that I can engage with people in a more sort of human way. This is not supposed to be a lecture. That's really not my style. I like to engage with people, I like to have conversations. And so short of not being able to be in Ghana in a physical space, we thought it's, this is as cozy as we can get. So it would be great if I could see who you are, even if it's for the sections where we're having a conversation like this. And I have got a very short presentation, but really it's to inform you about the kind of work that I do and the kind of vision that we have for the work that we want to do with this community. So thank you, Habiba, for putting your for showing us who you are. It makes a difference to me in a really big way. So well, what I'm going to do,
try to let them know, Andeline, that people can put their hands up during the course and speak, or do you want to let them know as well? Yeah.
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Basically, it's meant to be interactive. So Andeline will have a short presentation, but essentially, even during the course of a presentation, if you have a question or if there's some things that aren't very clear or you want clarification, just put your hand up. We'll unmute you or unmute yourself, and you can speak. If you want to make comments, have insight. So it's meant to be interactive. So please, bear that in mind. It's not a lecture, it's interactive. And so whenever you want to speak, just put your hand up. And if it's an appropriate time, you'll be unmuted or you'll self-unmute and, we can have a conversation. Yeah, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Yes, please do. And if you want clarification, you want to comment, just use the emoji for putting your hand up and, have a conversation. Otherwise, it feels like I'm just talking to myself. And really, I don't want to really hear the sound of my own voice for the next hour. So, and again, I want to get to know this community. I want to know who you are. I want to understand more about you, because the way that we've tried to work this is to make it as contextual as possible, and that is the whole point of coaching, which I'm going to explain what that is, because I know it's not something that everybody understands. So let me just share the screen so everybody can see that.
Yes, we could all see it. Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Just put people at the bottom there. Right. So this is Reclaiming Our Space Ghana chapter. The reason we called it Reclaiming Our Space is because I started this in a sort of physical form in a community cafe here in Malaysia. And one of the ladies who actually was in charge of that space, because they own the cafe, and we used to go upstairs for doing different workshops and sessions. She's like, this space is always full of like men, they're either sat here chatting, or they have some kind of, and they'll bring up tea and they'll just be talking. And I want to use this space for women as well. But then, women feel shy and they feel like, oh, maybe it's just for men. So I was like, okay, let's reclaim our space physically, emotionally, mentally, in every way. And that's how the name came up, where we just want to reclaim our space in society, our space in people's way of thinking, so that we're considered in every single form. And it worked really well, because also the people who were there were happy to offer that up, even if they had things going on, because if we don't ask, we're never going to receive. So we have to always ensure that we do our best to be able to reclaim spaces that are there for everybody. And this is our community space. It's a virtual one. So that's where the name comes from. And the whole point of being in this space is that we want to create a community, and not just any community. It's a sacred community, because that bond that we have as women goes far beyond something that we just engage with at a sort of professional level. This is deeply personal. It's based on a healing energy, where we want to be able to have real conversations about real issues that affect us in real time. And so we really honor people's stories, whatever they may think of for themselves, or other people have their perspectives. Everybody is welcome in this sacred community, because whatever you bring is, for this space, a non-judgmental space, a confidential space, and an open space where people get to bring their full selves. Because how many places do you know where you get to bring your full self without actually feeling judged, or watching your words, or having to put on some kind of mask, right? So this space is meant for you to unburden, to be able to leave those parts of you that you have to feel that you have to put on a mask, and come here as your genuine true self. And that's what's so sacred about it. And so we don't take that for granted when you do. So let me explain just a little bit about myself. And I want to be able to really just give a little bit of background to who I am, and, how I ended up being involved in the work that I do right now. So I do have some experience of being in Africa. It may not be West Africa, but I spent the first 9 years of my life actually in Libya, in Tripoli, because my father was actually in the oil and gas business. So although as a family we're born and brought up in the UK, the first 9 years were quite formative years, where we were actually brought up and went to school in, and had a community in Libya. Then we moved actually to Birmingham. I haven't got that in there. So it's really, if you know the UK, it's in the Midlands. And then I traveled around there and studied in Manchester. And eventually I ended up in London, which I consider to be, my first real home, in terms of where I felt that I could be my true self and really do the work that meant something to me. It's also where I met Aziza and got to meet lots of amazing people there. And I got married in my late 20s, and had 3 kids, one after the other, pretty much. This is the efficient part of me going, okay, got the one child, let's roll them out. There's only so much time I got to, spend on bringing up kids. So let's just, batch them up. So, so the time gap of 3 of my kids is quite small. There's only 18 months between the first 2, and then 2 and a bit years between my second and my third. So, you know, I got the house, I got the sort of, you know, white picket fence, I got the nice school opposite us where everyone's like, oh, you should get them into good schools. So I really did everything that I thought I should be doing. And I really thought, okay, so this is it. And without wanting to sound ungrateful, because you know, I did have a really good life, good family, good friends, great projects. It really felt like there might be something missing. And so my husband and I, we agreed that we would just travel Asia for 2 years, just go on an adventure, get our savings. Kids are young. At the time, you know, they were just 2 years old, 2.5 years old, 5 years old, 7 years old. And we actually just thought, you know what, we'll just go traveling for, you know, 2 years. And Asia's like a whole continent that we haven't really explored much of. Let's just go do that and then come back, resume our life. And of course, oh, nearly 12 years later, we are still here. So we went to Singapore and then moved from Singapore. We stayed there for 4 years and arrived in KL, Malaysia. Sorry, I've got a bit of a sore throat. We arrived in 2015. So our adventure continues, our 2-year adventure. And that also meant that my career went through very different stages at different times based on where I was. So I am a former teacher. Don't know if there's any teachers in the house here. There's always some teachers lurking around. Let me know if you are. So I used to be a secondary school and college teacher. And over time, I did pretty much everything under the sun because I've always been involved in some level of social activism or community work, whether it's NGO work or whether it's working on policy in government. I've always done something where I felt like I can make some small difference in my own way. And what happened was when I moved to KL, I think it's the onset of being in your 40s. And I thought, you know what, I've got to do something that actually has some longevity and meaning to me and not just sort of keep dipping in and out of all these spaces that are relevant in their own way, but I can use what I've learned to be able to get to the next stage. And that's when I really set up my company, my Nomads, and I was able to really live out all those parts of myself where I thought I can develop programs to, you know, work with women and young people that I know really does make a difference. And that really was the start of where I am now, where I became a licensed coach, where I was able to learn different tools and techniques, and I was able to do other types of healing modalities. I'll give anything a go. People will be like, you're just so kooky, you'll try anything, and I will. You know, I've done like theta healing, pranic healing. I've done every type of like modality that you can think of, where if I feel it can really benefit other people, I want to learn about it and see if it's something I can use as a tool to be able to serve others. And NLP was actually one of the tools that allowed me to be able to sort of enter that space. So I'll tell you about my family. I already did. I have a husband and 3 kids, been married 20 years. So we actually do work here in Malaysia also around marriage, premarital work, post-marriage, looking at ways to sustain healthy relationships. And my 3 children, I say children, my eldest is now 18, so I have an adult child, which is like another, you know, level for us all together, and a 17-year-old boy and a 14-year-old girl. So all the mothers out there with their teens, I'm with you, where this space is also for you. And all those who are at those stages where they're like, will they ever grow up and learn to do things for themselves? I'm also there for you because I have been there, and I feel you, I hear you, I see you, right? And I tell you, it still goes in a blink of an eye, very, very quickly. So a lot of what the work that I do, it's really, really important for me for it to be aligned to my values. So doing work around values is something that I hope to do with this community. I feel like it's the foundational work that every single woman, and in fact, every individual should be doing in their life. And it's a way of actually getting to know yourself in your core essence, in a way that's going to allow you to make the right decisions for your life. If I had understood my values in a deeper way, in the way that I do now. So it's a bit of a scientific process. It's not sort of picking, oh, aspirational values from a list. It's actually a whole process that, I've devised. And once I was able to really work out who I was at my core, any decision I made was so much easier to be able to take forward. And it's not to say you don't give up good opportunities along the way because you think it might make you a lot of money or give you like access, but if it's not going to give you fulfillment because it's not aligned with your values, you've got a choice to make. And that's where knowing who you are and what you want from your life is really important. And I really do hope that we get to do that work together as well. So the work that I do really focuses on women, focuses on young people, and really allows me to, do the work that I really feel not only am I passionate about, but really am constantly learning about so that I can really make a difference in the lives of others. And so why coaching? I think as with anything in life, you have to find the best fit for you. Right now with counseling, which some people come to me and go, oh, you're a counselor, can you do this? So I try and make that distinction for people. Although coaching is one of the many therapies out there, coaching is really quite different. And that's what I want to be able to explain to you today. For those people who may not understand what coaching is or not come across it before, what is it that, you understand by the term. Let me know in the chat if you've ever done any coaching, if you have, or you're a coach yourself, or you've experienced some form of coaching, just so I get an idea of like any type of engagement, or if you've had like nothing whatsoever and you're not entirely sure,
Habiba Balogun is saying that yes. Habiba Balogun is saying that yes, I'm a coach.
Nice. Oh, I see we have a former teacher as well.
Yes,
so, yeah, wonderful.
As well. Former teacher. And then Faiza is also saying she has some experience, she has experienced some coaching. Yeah.
Ah, nice. Oh, so maybe she's female skills. Okay. But so a lot of the work that I do also is coaching change makers, right? So a lot of them are women change makers. So it's nice that Habiba, that you're doing that work at that level. So important. I've done NLP, Fatima. You're training to be a coach. Okay, welcome. I hope that it's to your satisfaction. Someone's training and oh, you're a nurse, and so there's definitely coaching. Oh yeah, so this is the other thing. Like I always felt that when I was teaching, coaching was such an integral part of it. But at the time, we're going back like over 20 years ago, nobody really understood what coaching was. It was more about getting a tennis coach or getting, football coach. And yet it was all about more in the sort of mentoring sphere where you're getting good at what you do or being an expert in that. And so I remember going, you know what, I used to teach economics. I have no idea why. Don't ask me why. Definitely needed career advice and I didn't get it. But I loved teaching, but I really didn't like my subject area. But what I loved was being with the students and talking to them about their life and finding ways that they could get better at what they do and fulfilling their potential. So that coaching, I totally agree with you. As a teacher, those are the most fulfilling aspects, I think, to actually doing that work. Nursing, teaching, yes, all these vocations for sure. So and I just touched on this very quickly. What is a coach? So let's explain it, especially for those people who may not have come across it before or understood it in that way. So we've got like different meanings by what we mean by the word coach. So where the coach is the expert, such as someone who is teaching you tennis or football or basketball or usually running, it's usually some kind of sport or some high performance game of some kind. That level of coaching is very directive and instructional. Like you have to hold the racket this way, you have to go back this way, you have to be able to swing. And it's really getting you to be the best you can in that field. And you're the expert in that field in some form. Doesn't mean you're better than someone because, none of the coaches really are as good as the Olympic gold wearers of that sport. They are able to, like Usain Bolt, he's not somebody, his coach isn't a faster runner than him, but he knows what needs to happen for you to become the best at it. And in the same way, you have a coach for that to make you the best at what you do. If we take it to the other spectrum, and coaching is always on a spectrum, we take it to the further end of the spectrum. We also need people to be able to be in our lives that can actually allow us to be the best version of ourselves. And in here, it's not the game or the coach or, you know, whoever is part of that process who's the expert. It's only ever the client, because you're always going to be in charge of your life. You're always going to be the person who's the expert of your life. No matter what I think, I'm always going to, you know, see it through my lens. So, you know, in this form of coaching, you know your life. It is not instructional. It's not meant to tell you how to live your life. It's not meant to tell you what is the best way. It's not meant to even give you advice in terms of what you should do, because that would be based on my perspective. It is non-directive and very facilitative. And that's what this is. We are doing group coaching at the moment. So there's one-to-one coaching, group coaching, all kinds of different coaching that happens. And this one is also demographically placed in a way where it's just for women. So again, we can make it as small or as large as we want to. And sometimes I will get people who are like, you know, if you're in my situation, what do you think you might do? So you move along the spectrum a little. And once you get to know people better, I'm able to give options of, well, I can see that if you're in this situation, these are the dangers, but these are the benefits. And so you're able to come, you know, able to dance with that a little bit more. So it's not like, okay, I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions and you better figure it out. It's also very, it's guided in a way that's going to allow you to figure out what is the next best step that you need to take in your life. And that's really what I want to understand from yourselves today. When you thought about coaching, or if you thought about coaching, if you're already a coach, what are the main areas where you feel in this context, in this community that we're in today, right now, are the issues that are of most interest to you? So I think, do I need to stop this in order to launch the poll, Aziza, or just thought about that? Might need to, right? Shall I stop the share? I can't hear you. Oh, there you go. Oh, Aziza, you're on mute.
Sorry, I thought I wasn't on mute. Yes, I've just launched it. So
Okay.
people could answer the questions in the poll. What's the main area of concern for you at this point in your life? It's multiple choice, so you can just click on what's relevant for you. Your relationships, your work, your children, your lack of purpose, your mental health. Yeah. So 100%. Yeah. Okay. It's moving up and down.
Excellent.
Okay. Children, 83%. Children is the most important one at the moment. And then I think second is coming relationships and work. Lack of purpose, 14%. Mental health, 43%. That's pretty high. And other is 14%. It'd be good to know what the others are. Yeah.
Yeah. If you put down others,
children is number one.
Let us know. Yeah. Let us know what that is. I'm just going to make a quick note as you're filling out. So please, it's all anonymous. So, you know, please put down the areas that you feel are relevant for you. I'm just putting it down so I've got it for future reference as well. It's interesting, isn't it? We got children, 75%. I just did a session on parenting, actually, just yesterday. And I had people who didn't even have children and they were worried about like having children. So I think this is something that's really universal.
Yeah.
In all sense.
Yeah.
So
the figures are changing a little bit, but it's still children, 67%, relationships, 56%. Mental health is also 56%. I mean, that's a big one now, isn't it? It's 56%. And then, so basically it's relationships and mental health are 56%, children 67%, work 44%, lack of purpose 11%, and then other 22%. So it'd be good to know what the other aspects are.
Yeah, would you mind putting it in the chat?
Yeah.
If you put down other, so, or you know, just unmute and let us know what that is. I'm just changing it here now. Okay. All right. I think that's probably everybody. So
Yeah.
everybody can see the results there, right? 100%.
Yeah.
On. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Someone's raised their
Wonderful.
hand. Someone's raised their hand.
Yes.
Let's let them unmute. Let's see who that is. Yep. Who's raised their hand? Please unmute yourself.
Yes. Is that Sia?
Yes.
Yes. Hello, hello.
No.
Hi, Sia.
Hello. Sorry, I can't put my camera on right now, but I wanted to say that I didn't put other, but because I kind of finished the poll kind of quick, and then I thought about it when you're asking. But if I were to do it again, the other would be find, which I guess can go along in the relationships, but it's more specific to maybe finding time for self-care.
Okay.
Right.
You know, that would be an other for me, which is maybe why I checked off mental health, but because that was the category, but I may have put more about my self-care time, putting myself first, time management, all that connected to that.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Thank you for that. I got a direct message as well from somebody who said that actually for them it's about new beginnings, because they're going through a divorce, which is fairly imminent, and that I would say when we talk about new beginnings, I'll just stop sharing that now, I think, so we can see each other. Everybody saw it already, right? So, for the person who put that, I actually used to run for a few years here a divorce support group, because I found that when I moved to Malaysia, every other woman I was meeting, they were either going through a divorce, had a divorce, or thinking of a divorce. And I was like, what is going on here? Like, I keep meeting all these women who are going through these huge transitions, and there's no real support here. There's no kind of safe collective space where people can just come in and just talk through this huge thing that is going on for them, and if they're just isolated in this experience. So I thought it's a great way for people to be able to meet other women who have either gone through it, going through it, or even contemplating it. And it was one of the most powerful sort of groups I've had, because I think as women, we are continuously met with transitions in our life. When we are going through our life, we are changing and adapting our roles based on who's in our life. So, if we're a daughter, a sister, then become a wife, then become a mother, then, we're working, we're a friend, we're a colleague, we it can become grandmothers. There's this continuous sort of adjustment and readjustment. And then at the stage that I'm at now, I'm, grown-up children become empty nesters, now getting into another stage of life. So there's this constant sort of transitioning in life. And there's no one really to hold your hand through that process where you're going, so you're going to be entering another sort of chapter of your life, and this is how it's going to be. And all you can really go by is, what's everybody else doing? Oh, they seem to be okay. Oh yeah, they'll see people's lives on social media, or they might see sort of, the highlights of somebody's life that look amazing, and then just feel like, hold on a second, why am I finding it so difficult to adjust to, the next stage of my life? And that's because we are constantly going through different cycles within our life. And this is, for yourself, I'm sure you're not the only one, the person who wrote the message about going through a divorce. I can guarantee there will be other women who have either gone through something like that or going through it right now.
Angeline, just a quick one. Can I just ask a question at this juncture?
Yes, absolutely.
This issue of people not having a support system when they're transitioning through these various phases and roles. is this a new development in the last few decades of human existence? Did we have more support before, when people lived with multi-generational households and closer knit communities where there was that support system because the people around you who knew you and loved you, who were part of your family, lived nearby? And is it because of like urbanization and people, living in cities and, traveling to work that this is disappearing, and people are having to really either feel isolated or really, really actively seek to create, cohesive groups and shared spaces? I mean, what do you think?
Yeah. It's all of the above, like what you're making reference to, that we sort of have to do everything on our own now, it seems. It's we did have a system whereby there was a village, and now where there was a village, there is like your nuclear family. And that's why it also pressurizes the marital relationship, because we expect our partner to be able to provide all those and fulfill all those roles that once all the extended members of the family and wider community did. And so that puts a lot of pressure on, young families, especially where there isn't that amount of support in order to move forward. Now, was it perfect when people lived in these close-knit communities, or, the sort of village, as we call it, in terms of, if somebody's child is there, you could call them in for dinner, you can discipline them. It was a very different society in many ways, and you didn't always feel responsible for every little thing that was going on. And for all its faults, it was able to provide that sense of security and support. And it's not just urbanization, but this idea of, expectations that we have now of ourselves and our children, where, you get the helicopter parents too, where they want to control every aspect of that child's life. Like they have to go to the best schools, and they have to meet with certain friends, and they have to do those activities because you're trying to set them up for success, or your definition of success. So we also have done this to ourselves, where we feel like this is the only path forward, and everybody has a version of what that means. And so there's less space to include others, because in order to afford that, you have to work very hard. And so you'll get two-parent families working full-time, and also wanting to be there for their children. And so we get further and further isolated. And so those transitions, there's not someone natural there, unless you have like a sibling you're close to, or a mother or an aunt, or somebody that can maybe appreciate, as a woman, the kind of changes you're going to have to make. It becomes very difficult to lean on someone, because not everybody has that, and that in and of itself is a real tragedy. And the reason we're setting up these community spaces, because where in the absence of them, you don't have it, we see the rise of mental illness. There's like a direct correlation. That's why there's more people who will die of loneliness than smoking cigarettes. Right, this was, and I don't know the exact percentage, but this came out even pre-COVID, when isolation was taken to another level, and people really did have to pay attention. So, as women, we have traditionally always huddled in community spaces to be there for each other. We cry together, we sing together, we laugh together, we dance together. And then we think about the fact that, how much of that do we actually still do? How much of that is going on? And when I talk about, laughing, crying, dancing together, that's all release of stress and trauma from within you. That's, decreasing your cortisol levels. What are we doing now as a collective community to allow for that? There's really no real safe space where we can go, even religious spaces don't really exist to heal us in that way. And that's why creating these types of spaces, even if they're virtual, they can be lifesavers for people, And so I, totally relate to the point that at any given point in time, a woman is going through some kind of transition, right? It'll be something, right? I'm should be approaching menopause soon. I think I'm perimenopausal, maybe, may not be, who knows, right? It's like also at some stage you're going to get to that stage. So, you know, as women, our bodies are changing, our lives externally are changing. We're never actually just, you know, stable for too long. And I like to call it evolving. I like to call it we're moving in a direction, allowing ourselves to be more of ourselves. And that's why older women are so dangerous, right? Because we stop caring after a while. We're like, okay, bring it, you know, like whatever you want, that's fine, because I'm here for it. Like I've been through all of this and I'm going through more, and women are not willing to tolerate it anymore. So they will speak up for themselves. But, you know, why should we have to wait till our 50s to do that? Like we should be able to have that confidence and that and have those levels of self-esteem to voice our concerns right from the beginning. So let me just explain. So we explained the sort of directive instructional coaching and the sort of more facilitative and sort of conversational coaching, where, you know, this is the work that we're doing here in this space is about. And so I want to explain a little bit what coaching actually is. And I'm specifically talking in reference to life coaching. There's many different kinds of it. And the whole point behind it is to really unlock a person's potential. Like if we're looking at anything, it's like, think about all that potential sitting inside of yourself and how much of it have you actually realized? Like truthfully, honestly, how much of what you know you hold inside of you, whether it's gifts, talents, skills, attributes, anything that you hold within yourself has actually been realized, or we're just waiting for the right time to do the thing that we think we should do, or are we just too tired to do any more of that because we're burnt out, right? So it's really about unlocking that. And so it can really help people to be able to gain clarity and direction in their life. The way that, you know, somebody described it to me, which I thought was a really great way of sort of explaining it, was she said, you know, I felt like when I first came to see you, I was wearing these sort of spectacles, and it was just really, they were dirty, they were fuzzy, and I just didn't know who I was, where I was going. And by the end of it, I had this sort of clarity. They were like clean, sort of like spectacles. And I was like, I know where I'm going. And even if I make mistakes along the way, I know what I need to do to be able to learn from that and move on. And it just clarified a path forward. So it removes that fog. And also it helps you with that mental chatter, which we all know we have. Some people worse than others in terms of these voices constantly in our heads going, you do this, you must do that. And then sometimes we hear our mother's voice, and sometimes we hear like a boss's voice, and sometimes we hear our own voice, and they're usually not very kind voices. So that's the other thing about how we have that self-talk going on as well. So the idea is to offer support and guidance and figure out who you are in your essence. And when I talk about who you are in your essence, not who you were brought up to be, not the lineage or heritage that you know, were afforded, although that's a big part of your identity and makes you who you are, but to really know which parts of you you want to be able to utilize in a way that you can really put your best self forward. And really getting to know someone in their essence. If you have children, I see a lot of people wanting to know about children, so I'm assuming we have a lot of people here who have children. This is really important, because you'll realize if you have more than one child, how different each child is, even though you're bringing them up in exactly the same way. It's very hard to make them the same. Why? Because they're born with their own essence. And it's only us, for our own convenience, we try and mold them to be something that we think is acceptable. And we are actually taking away from that. And then, so when we get older, we're like, I want to know which part of this is me, which part of it was the one I had to be, which one of this do I want to move forward with? So you got to identify parts of yourself in order to have an identity that you are secure in, right? And that means working through some stuff. And so the whole point is to live a life of meaning. And And when I say a life of meaning that makes sense for you, because we all have our definition of success, right? Your definition of success is going to be different from your parents, from your siblings, from your friends. It's going to be different depending on where you live in the world, depending on what you think is accessible for you or not. So you want to be able to really, with coaching, utilize it in a way where you're really putting your best foot forward, and coaching allows you to be able to do that. So we do look in your past like counseling, but we don't trap ourselves in our past, because we are more than our past. We take our lessons, so we have to go there, but we take those lessons and we use them in the present to create the future we want. So it's not that we just deny the fact that, you know, there is, but we just don't like to live there. And sometimes in counseling, you can live there for a very long time before you find a way forward to your future. And that's why I preferred the coaching model over the counseling model, because you are much more restricted in counseling in terms of protocols of what you can or cannot do. And coaching is far more intuitive to know what is right for each person. So thank you for, you know, the poll and answering, you know, what that all the various options that you ticked off. These are the main areas that I found that women need most support with in some way. And so when we talk about relationships, we are not just talking about relationships with other people. We're talking about relationship with ourselves first. What kind of relationship do you have with yourself? Anybody want to hazard a guess, or, you know, think about that and throw something in the chat? Like, what kind of relationship do you have with yourself? We talk about what relationship I have with my partner, relationship I have with my kids, relationship I have with my in-laws. You might be able to define it, but what kind of relationship do you have with yourself? Is it healthy? Is it divisive? Is it kind? Is it cruel? So, because that is the most important relationship, because without that, it's very hard to build healthy, consistent relationships with other people. And so we always think the problem lies with being a certain way towards people, but usually it's to do with us. So I see people are putting down expecting too much. Oh yes, join the club, right? Why do we have the highest standards reserved for ourselves? And actually it's never even high, it's like impossible. Extremely judgmental. That's the other thing. You know, a lot of people say that in terms of like judgmental. I wonder where we picked up that judgment from. Like, we must have picked it up from somewhere for it to be living there, right? So it's really important to see also, like, where did we inherit this way of being with ourselves? So a lot of people put down judgment, actually. Wow. A lot of people judging themselves here. Extremely judgmental, fairly judgmental, not enough, deliberate, exhausting, pushing myself, feeling like I can't catch up. Yeah, this is it. Who are we racing? What do we think where's the end point? Like, why do we always feel like we're in this race? And I'm as guilty as anybody else. That's why I was like, oh, better have those children, get them done. 1, 2, 3, move along now. Like, what was it that I was thinking at the time that, you know, I was catching up with, like, I'm gonna lose time? Cheerleading. Oh, you're cheerleading. That's great. I love it. We have somebody who's cheerleading themselves. Where is this pressure coming from? Yes, I know. That is the question, the $1 million question, right? Where is this pressure coming from? Well, because the fact is, okay, so let's look at it this way. It is not your fault that you are judgmental to yourself, right? Because that's who you are now as a result of all these experiences you've had. But it is your responsibility now that once you bring self-awareness to it, to go, what am I going to do about it? Right? Now we've got to be able to take it to that next level, to be able to say, where did it come from? Where did I pick this up from? Why do I think I need to be seeking perfection? Right? I'm glad that CA said kind and forgiving. That means you've done some work on yourself, because there's nobody who not many women just come across as like, I'm going to be kind and forgiving to myself without having done some work on themselves.
And Lee, can I say something really quickly? Can I ask?
Yes, go for it.
I mean, the thing is, it's a fine line, isn't there, between the judgment and seeking purpose. You know, none of us want to just, you know, waft away our, however long we're here, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, however many years we're here, and not feel that they've contributed to the trajectory of human existence. You know, I feel that there is a natural impulse that to feel like, look, I was part of the chain of human existence, and I was given certain skills and gifts and put in certain situations, and I have contributed to that. I feel that that is an inherent human need. You know, I mean, I'm putting it out there, but this is personally, I do feel that there is, and I feel that part of it just has to be with the right intention. It has to be done lovingly, and it has to be done not to please anyone else, but to think, no, I am of value to society. I have something to contribute just like everybody does. And I want to use my life feeling that I made an effort, not within moderation, with balance, with an effort to fulfill that obligation and then, you know, and move on in a way that's satisfying. I think there is an element of that for human beings.
100%, because without that, you will be numb to life. You will not even enjoy life, right? And so, I mean, that's one of the areas which we work on is purpose, right? Exactly what you were speaking to, knowing what your gifts and talents are, to be able to use those gifts and talents in service of others in some way, and living a life worth living. You see, the problem is that when we think, again, going by a definition of success that we may have unconsciously taken on, we are constantly doing, and losing ourselves in the doing. And we forget to be, and we forget to just hold that space for ourselves to know, is this the next thing that I want to do that's going to make sense for me? So some level of pressure is really, really important in order to move you forward, but not so much that it cripples you or judges you to the degree that you're never going to be happy with yourself. So getting that balance of living a purposeful life and at the same time, being able to do so in a balanced way is near on impossible with the kind of challenges we are faced with. So we need constant reminders about what we need. And also it's about how different people operate in different spaces. So if you take the spectrum of, say, certainty, you know exactly what's going to happen, and uncertainty, you're like, I have no clue what's going to happen. Some people operate really well with just predictability, certainty, a life that they know exactly where the one thing is going to lead to the next and to the next. And so this is where they might find they thrive in, and gives them that level of stability. And somebody else on the other side thrives on uncertainty, because that's just too predictable and boring for them. And they need to have things that they're not sure what's going to happen, you know, in the next few months or years, or they're in a space where, of course, everybody needs a level of comfort in terms of stability, but overall, they get their sort of push from knowing what else is possible and not knowing where they'll be in 5 years' time, because, you know, they're pushing themselves into spaces that they've never even encountered before. So different people work in different spaces, and you've got to think, do I work better when I'm in a space which is predictable and you know, comfortable for me, and I can produce my best work there? Or is it in the space where there is uncertainty to the degree that I'm pushed to think outside of what I'm accustomed to? And of course, we know we need to step out of our comfort zone to get the most out of ourselves. And it's all a spectrum. It's never one extreme or another. But most people will fall on one sort of level to another in terms of how they can really perform in the best possible way. So these are really important questions about knowing yourself. So somebody's asking, what kind of relationship do you have with yourself? This is so powerful. Yes, absolutely. And you know, I do a whole thing around having a relationship with yourself. First of all, you've got to know there's a whole model about how we even think about how we think, right? Like, why are the thoughts entering your head in the first place? Why is it you're thinking about those things and not other things? Like, you could be thinking about anything. Why is it that the lens through which you think of something is specifically ordered in that way for you. And there's a whole, again, science behind that. And if we get chance in one of the sessions, we should definitely do that. And Sia was saying, been putting in that work. Yes, I knew it. You see, you can tell when someone's been putting in the work. I'm in the cycle of kindness, forgiveness, pushing myself like my own cheerleader, not being able to, I can't see what that says, do the self-care things that I feel defeated. Then I go back to my kindness and forgiveness and the current cycle. Yeah, absolutely. Good for you that you are pushing yourself to be able to know that this is lifelong commitment to yourself. And then you'll realize that life really has more of a flow, right? That we don't constantly stop dead in our tracks and just go, okay, what, like, where am I? This is what women quite often do. They will get married because social conditioning is such that your life is nothing unless you get married. And so you must do that. So they go, oh, I did it, I got married. Then they have kids and they go, yeah, gotta have kids, because again, it's something that you may want, but it's also real strong social conditioning for women to, and especially from the cultures that we come from, to be able to have that. Then you do that. Now, at some point in your life, you'll go, now what? Like, what now? And there is something that you're going to need to answer beyond that, because guess what? Your blueprint only took you this far because that's how far your parents or the blueprint took you. It was like, study hard, get a good job, get married, have children. And then it's almost like, that's the end. Just continue with that. And it's like, well, that's just the beginning of my life. That can't be like, that's it. So, so we have to, really look at what that means. And it's meant, it is mentally exhausting, but again, once you get into that flow, Sia, what you'll find is that you're not creating so much tension or resistance internally, and it becomes far less exhausting. It becomes more flowing. But we do need some level of discomfort to make us progress, right? So there's constant need to do that work, but then progress is really the thing that allows us to become better than we were yesterday. And so let me go on to the next one. So career is another area. A lot of women come, I gave up everything for my kids. Now my kids have gone. And if they are, mothers who recognize the fact that they cannot hold on to their children forever and expect their children to revolve their life around them now, and said, okay, they're living their life and I'm there for them, but what do I do? And that's why I say career, but I also mean any type of work. Unfortunately, the way that society, Western, Eastern, every type, they only seem to value work if it's paid or it has status or it's given a title. I'm talking about any type of work, whatever work you do, right? The small, consistent work is usually far more valuable and life affirming than, the big jobs, which can quite often burn you out. So I'm making reference to women at different stages of their life doing different kinds of work that serve them. I've also had lots of people who come and they talk about grief, whether they've lost a parent, a partner, a child, even it can be about a friend, it doesn't matter. But, again, we're expected after a short period of time to just get on with it. It's very hard to move on when you don't have someone in a supportive space, just holding space for you. Nobody needs to fix anything. Nobody needs to solve anything. They just need to hold space for you while you go through this grief process. And quite often we have to put on that brave face and get back to it. So that those are, areas why we're creating this sort of like sacred community. Now, we talked about mental well-being, different mental sort of illnesses. But, we know that the data reflects very accurately that the majority of autoimmune diseases, overwhelmingly between 80 to 90%, are actually owned by women. Like they're the ones who predominantly suffer from this. Why is that? Right? So when we talk about mental health, that's a huge area, because sometimes they'll say there's nothing actually wrong with you, but there is something wrong. And a lot of that's got to do with the dysregulation of your nervous system, which is now crying out and saying, please pay attention to me, because, you know, you've suppressed this for long enough, whether it's emotions or grief or any other area, it has to manifest itself in some way.
And
So
just come in
yeah.
there quickly. I'll say this also because Sia said that she unfortunately has to go, but she's very much interested in a workshop on relationship with self. So we'll have to keep her posted on that. The other thing about the autoimmune disease, I find that fascinating that it's predominantly women. And I would say women, I don't know whether it's conditioning or our biological makeup or physiology or how we're made, we tend to absorb the emotional energy around.
Yes.
And we tend to be the emotional carrier bag for everybody around.
Yeah.
You know, if it's your partner, it's your kids, your mother, your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, you know, everybody, you know, all the circles of, you know, family and social relationships. The woman is like, I'm not saying she has to do it, but it seems to be the default position, and it seems to be that's what we do naturally. And you know, if it's not going to be released anyway, if it's being taken on and it's just being stored, this is going to cause problems. You know,
in the long run, it will, but in the short term, we're so resilient. We're like, we can do this. So imagine a bag on your back, right? And you go and see your mom and she tells you stuff and you throw it in the bag, and then you go to your kids and your kids like, I need this, and then you throw it in your bag, and your spouse is there and they say, and you throw it in your bag, and then you go to your in-laws and there's stuff going on and you throw it in your bag, and you go to work and your employer's like this, you throw. So can you imagine what you're carrying? You've got this all in your bag, you're carrying it around just because you can't physically see it. Right? That's why we have such stiff shoulders and back issues and everything. It's like we are emotionally carrying this baggage, and we're just carrying it around. We're not fine, everything's good, because of course we judge each other by how we look externally. So put on a nice dress and good headgear, you know, we're ready to go, and people don't see it, right? We hide it like so well. Women are such good they can masquerade as anything if they choose to, right? So here we are carrying this, and we have nowhere where someone's going, can you just take that bag off your back and just kind of put it down, right? Because first of all, nobody acknowledges it. And like you say, we unwittingly receive it because women are also designed to be the listeners, the carers, the nurturers. So it's natural. They will say, okay, let me hear, let me feel, let me see. And at no point is anyone saying, can you just put that bag down and let me hear about you? Or in order for you to put that bag down, I need for you to be able to release it from your body. Or I need you to do some techniques. I do tapping, we do energy, we do all kinds of different techniques to be able to just release things from our body. Right? But the fact is we don't even give ourselves permission to put the bag down, because we're almost like, where do I go? And that's what also this collective space is meant to be, where we emotionally unburden, right? Where we go, here's a space where I can just kind of like throw this and feel safe, not judged for it. And now, you know what? I feel a bit lighter. This is why if you go out with a good friend that you trust and you have a good natter and you talk about it, you do feel lighter. And you feel better for just getting it off your chest, right? That's one of the stages. Then the next is to be able to know, I have to stop to keep doing this to myself. How can I create some boundaries that will allow me to be there for people, but in a way that I'm not doing injustice to myself or my body? And figuring that out for yourself, right? Because they're not straightforward conversations. Because we tend to stop at the, I had a great time with my girlfriends and we went out. But then what, you're going to wait another like 6 months before that happens again? You know, we don't really have those opportunities. And that's what I mean. Even though when we had the village and it may have come with, some social problems, ultimately there's always somewhere there to listen to you. There's always someone there who you can like sit with, that you can actually talk through, or there's wisdom that is imparted from, our elders, which can allow us to feel held, which can allow us to feel safe and secure. But now this isolation is the thing that's really, killing us quite literally from inside. So let me move forward. I do realize that I do have a few more and I'm wary of time. So motherhood, parenting, we will definitely have to do this because so many people have spoken about children. I'd love to actually hear from people about what is it about children that you feel that you need most support on? What ages are we talking about? Early years, teens, or just different transitions? That would be helpful. And sometimes people will come because they'll just say, you know what, I'm just feeling lost. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, earlier, the lady was saying, like, I'm just entering another transition in my life. And actually, I don't know what that means. What does being divorced look like? I have never been divorced. Like, what does that mean for me now? So it can be because of a life situation, or it can just be you've got to a point in your life, and you could be married and you have kids, and you're just like, I'm just kind of meandering through life. Like, I don't know, I'm doing the same thing here and there, what I think I should be doing. Why am I feeling this way? Right? And that in and of itself is really, really important to acknowledge and not ignore, because that means you're lacking some kind of inner meaning or out of alignment with your values in some way, right? And sometimes, and this is why I love the work that I do, people come to me because I'm doing great, but you know what? I want to be even better. Like, I want to go to the next level. So I find that the women who come to me, they're actually probably the ones that you would least expect to come, because they're already doing amazing work. They're already like sought the help and, trying to read the right books and listening to these podcasts and doing work. You know why? Because these women already understand the value of self-awareness and self-growth and development. So those are the people that come. They're like, I know this isn't the best version of me. Like, I need to keep working at becoming more of that. And it's almost like an addiction. You're like, I got here, I want to get to that next stage. I don't know what that looks like, but they're hungry for it. And they will schedule me in first thing in the morning before they go to work, or they'll schedule me in first thing for like a weekend, if they know, because I don't work every weekend, because they know they want to be able to do that. And then you'll find certain people who may have the whole day pretty much free, and they're meandering, and they're like, yeah, I don't really have time. Yeah, no time to do this. And you go, really? Because you got to make time for you if you want to be able to perform at your best. And we're not talking about a career, we're talking about for your life, for the best type of life that you want for yourself. And so if you don't put in some kind of effort, then you're really not going to get the best result, because people are like, it should just happen. There's a level of entitlement, like they got it. What did they do for it? I should have that too. And then there's resentment, and we live in victimhood. But actually, there has to be a level of effort based on who you are. You got to put forward something. That's why, the people who came today, and we know that a lot of people signed up for today. We were chatting about it earlier, me and Aziza. We're like, oh, there's always like, a bunch of people. And then, the attrition is half will, forget, and the other half will like be late, and another half will be, like things came up. So the people who turned up today, you made the effort to turn up today. You put the effort in. That says something about you. Don't undermine that. You put in the time and effort on your Sunday to turn up for something that you thought could give you value. And hopefully it is. And you're able to really benefit from that. But we've got to do it consistently. We can't do it as a one-off, right? Like, hey, this is great. And then we go back to a default setting, because that doesn't change behavior and it doesn't change habits. It just makes us feel good momentarily. So that's why we want to do this as a regular sort of occurrence. And I wanted to just, it's always good to throw in some nice quotes, right? Because they make us feel like, aspirationally, that we've got something to work towards. And, this quote is I think so powerful, because it speaks to the collective in terms of, I am not free while any woman is unfree, even when her shackles are very different from my own. It is based on this idea that everybody somewhere, especially as women, has a different struggle that we may not see, but we have to acknowledge belongs to them. And so we have to be there for each other, because together we get to be stronger. Together we get more power than if we were just trying to make it on our own, because there's a healing energy to being in a collective space. And that's what this is about. So this is the first of what we hope to be many, right? This is a collective sisterhood where I really want to create that space in a way where we, first of all, know how to hold space for each other. That's something that we also have to learn. A lot of people don't know how to hold space. And you know, we can get very uncomfortable when somebody presents us with a problem and we try to fix it, right? We want to like just make it better, or it gets so uncomfortable for us if somebody starts crying and we're just like, I don't know what to do. So we got to get good at just holding space and allowing the person to be able to work through that in a safe container. We've also got to realize that it's amazing, but you know, when you see someone else struggling and you share that experience with someone else, and you help them through it through supporting them, that actually releases these feel-good hormones of oxytocin. You feel good because you're there for someone, right? You were able to serve someone in a way, not because you had to, but because you got something from it. So don't deny each other the opportunity to give each other some oxytocin, right? It also allows you to connect with each other, to love each other, build that trust. And that's what we want to do here. It's only in the sharing of your stories and your struggles will we feel better for it collectively. It's something you simply cannot do on your own. You can't, right? You can't talk to yourself and make yourself feel better. You'll just make yourself feel worse, right? So this is part of holding that collective space for each other. So one of the things that we've got to, and today's session is very different. I was explaining to Aziza because I wanted to be able to explain what this space is. But, you know, we're definitely going to have like more interactive, more questions, more breakouts. It's going to be a very different setup. And when we have that, we want to be able to set a space where we're just curious. We don't question and judge people for their choices in life. You can't know the context of somebody. Even if they come from the same place and, you know, speak the same language, it's just not possible for you to be able to really know who they are. So, you know, one of the biggest skills that we are really bad at, and we're really bad at passing on to our children as well, is having difficult conversations. In fact, these days, you know, in fact, there's a whole word for it now, isn't it? It's called ghosting. Like, oh, I can't have that difficult conversation. You just ghosted me, right? Like, there's a whole like terminology for it now, because, you know, we have a generation of people who are like, I don't know how to say no. Like, how do I say, like, you know what? I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen. So we're just going to leave it there. And there was a time when we had no choice, because we lived in these bigger communities. You couldn't just hide away. You couldn't just disappear. You had to face the person and you had to have a conversation, right? We just don't do that anymore. When there's a difficult conversation, we'll just like lose contact and we'll just forget it happened, or we won't see somebody for a long time, and then we'll just be like, oh, let's just pick up where we left off, but not actually discuss the thing that drove us apart, right? So I really think knowing how to have difficult conversations is a skill that we've got to be able to finesse, so that we can really pass it on to our children as well, and tell them that ghosting really is not going to solve anything in the long run. So these are some I wanted to be able to explain in terms of, you know, areas that we may look at, and, you know, where you might feel that you need some changes in the tools that we can learn. So I want you to think about, you know, what are the myths or cultural norms that might be holding you back? A lot of the time it can be taboos or stigmas where you feel like, I can't really talk to anyone else, they won't understand it. This is giving a cultural context as well to people who have grown up in ways that maybe the rest of the world doesn't understand. We're going to be talking about, you know, your triggers. What are the triggers that also may be leading to that internal trauma that's being caused? Paying attention to your mental chatter. What actually are you saying to yourself that persistently is coming up that you need to pay attention to? We're going to look at changing behavior. So, you know, the outcome of the lens through which you look at your life is really important in order to change behavior. Like, why do I think like this in the first place? If you continue to have the same thinking, you're going to inhabit the same behavior. It's just one follows the other. So we've got to look at that. Having this supportive sisterhood is so crucial, because as change makers, as women who are making a difference in the world, we're the ones who break the cycle, right? We don't continue the cycle. And so many of you here today will be the cycle breakers for your generation. And you may not even know it, but you're the ones who get to allow the next generation of women who come after you to pave a way for them to be something that you couldn't be. Without having done the work, it's not possible. We just repeat the cycle. Without acknowledging there's a problem, we just repeat the cycle. So cycle breakers is a huge burden that women overwhelmingly carry, because so much of what they carry is based on what they've had to endure. And also, I don't put all the emphasis on women, because again, you can do all the work, but the institutions and the systems may still work against you. So at the larger level, there needs to be systemic change. We need to advocate for some societal change. If you're living in a patriarchal system, which is continuously condoning a certain way of being, and you're continuously having to resist against it, we need to find the right allies to be able to exist in safe spaces and to feel like a voice is also being heard. So I'm not just saying it's all on you, but we can only do what is within our control. And so, you know, that's a really important part of doing the work. So I'm ending up here now. I just wanted to let people know that, you know, for if you found anything here today that you felt like, oh, that really made me think about something, and I want to be able to go into that a bit further, but maybe not with a group of people in the same way that these sessions are designed to be, then do know that I do do one-to-one coaching. Feel free to call me. I'll give you my details. And, you know, you might just do one session and just go, you know what, that really helped me, and, you know, allows you to see things in a different way. But you can contact me on my number there. That's my email, info@mindnomads.com. I really am not of the generation who's good at Instagram, and I'm definitely, you know, more Facebook in some ways, because, you know, it was at a time when we were coming into the world. There's a little bit of LinkedIn in there, but the thing is, please don't judge me on my Instagram. It's terrible. So any of you young people out there, right, be like, ah, this is terrible. There's no reels here. There's no like dances here. Like, what's going on? It's usually just a way to inform people of some of the work that I'm doing, but it's there nevertheless. I'm trying.
Do you want to put your email just in the chat, or let me put it in the chat while you're chatting away, just so some people,
okay.
So they can
Yes, sure. And so the way that we operate here in Asia, at least, is everything's done through WhatsApp. It doesn't matter if you're a CEO or if you are like a student, everybody works on WhatsApp. So I've just got used to doing pretty much all my work on that. So, you know, feel free to send me a message if that, you know, you want to ask any questions or you're not sure about certain things. I'm really excited about getting to know this community. And like I said, Aziz and I've known each other for a very long time. And, you know, this is something that was in the offing for a while. So I wanted to be able to, you know, really connect in a way which holds meaning for you. So I have like a bunch of stuff which I think could be helpful. But what's most helpful for me is to hear from you. What's most helpful for me is to understand your lives and which areas are causing you the most concern, because we want to make sure that, you know, we're providing you with a healing space that's going to allow you to get the most out of that hour. And although, you know, we've gone over today, and, you know, there will definitely be times when, you know, we go past time a little bit. But the thing is, if you know once a month that you're going to be part of a healing circle where you get to witness another woman's story, and through that you get healed yourself, and through that you see a bit of yourself, and gives you the confidence to be able to step into the space and talk through some of the things that, you know, are important for you. That is where we call the healing energy, to be able to work on the things that make a difference for us. And I'm just there to facilitate that. I'm there to honor that space so that you can get the most out of it. So I would love for you to be able to, you know, really fully participate and to play all out, because when you play all out, you're the one who will get the most benefit from that. So what I'm proposing as a group process, so what we do in group coaching is, for example, this is like, say this could be like a physical circle, but we're doing it virtually. You're all sitting around in a circle, and, you know, decide what kind of theme we might want to focus on. Children seem to be something that's quite popular. Say we pick up on that. We find out a little bit more about what is it you want to work on in terms of children and areas. And then so I will facilitate a coaching session around that, where you participate in what it means for you and what you're working towards. And we will come up with means and ways for you to be able to uncover some of those wounds that may be triggering for you. Because most of the time when it comes to parenting, if you are kind of losing yourself or becoming someone that you don't like and you can't engage or connect with your child, there's usually because there is, you're being triggered because of an underlying wound that you haven't been able to heal yourself. And so it's coming out in a way which actually is not doing any of you a favor. And so a lot of parenting is around conscious parenting. It's about raising yourself so that you can raise your child. And we usually just think we should know this stuff automatically, like we should be born with it. Like I had a child and I know exactly what to do. And of course we know that's not true, right? So what is conscious parenting? What is it about your own inner child that you have to recognize to raise in order to be able to do the work that you have to do with children? Because so much of it's really about our own inner story.
I think, and just to comment, I think people need to understand that what we're going to be doing sort of regular sessions, you know, from time to time on themes that we think people as a collective are happy and comfortable to kind of have sessions on, so they understand a bit more about, like Andeline was saying, conscious parenting, relationships with self, mental health issues. So people really in a collective kind of safe space, they feel, okay, I can learn about this, and people are asking questions and, you know, commenting, and they think, wow, I really learned from that session. And then if people want more direct, specific coaching, they've got Andeline's details and her number. They can WhatsApp her, they can email her, and that's a private, you know, interaction between yourselves and Andeline, and you can ask her questions, and you can specify your specific needs, and you can say, I want to have coaching, I want to go on this trajectory. And, you know, that's a private conversation that you can have with her if you feel like, oh, I need one-on-one for whatever reason, you know, you need to go into depth, you want privacy, or, you know, whatever, for whatever reason, people need one-on-one, it needs to be more intense. So that's where you'd contact her directly and do it. And the collective is really raising collective consciousness about themes that we all are affected by, we all experience, we're all trying to grapple with. And we have a collective conversation about it, and people, you know, give comments or whatever, insights, responses based on their comfort level. You know, it's very, you know, it's very kind of relaxed and very, you know, everyone's very respectful of everybody else's space and boundaries. But it's really for them to understand these particular themes and to understand the science behind these themes, you know, which would, once they've been on the Zoom call, they, oh, okay, interesting. I didn't know that about parenting. Well, I didn't know that aspect about mental health. Actually, that's something I might want to implement in my life. And they could just take away those nuggets they get from the collective sessions without feeling, you know, compromised in any way. And so that, and then it raises awareness and consciousness that people can use to help themselves progress. And it's also nice to have the group session. So these are the two streams, and people can decide how they want to move forward with it, and have a direct conversation with Andeline about those individual ones. The collective ones are, you know, are open, and, you know, people can just tap into them when they get the link, etc. Yeah.
And you know, I just really want to reiterate the point around healing spaces for women. They are so powerful, which is why historically we've you know, been demonized for having these circles. Like people will they will see them as a threat to how we operate. You know, in past times they're like, oh, you're working like this, you're witches, or you're this or you're that. Anytime people come together in a way where it empowers them, it suddenly becomes quite threatening. And the thing is that if we as women can collectively heal ourselves, actually it heals our communities, it heals our families, it builds stronger communities. And so it really starts with us. And if we're not prepared to put ourselves first, then really everything suffers, whether people like it or not. Of course, it may mean for others that you can't be controlled anymore, and they won't like that, right? And yeah, that's going to be part of the struggle for some people. Others who perhaps have more freedom and capacity to be able to be their own person, then they got a little bit more to be able to advocate for themselves and know you know, what it is that they need to do in their life to live the best life possible for them. But you see, these circles really, they're not just a good to have. They're not just, oh, it's a good bonus, you know, I'll just come in and listen in and it'll be good. They are actually critical to the life force of us as women, the energy that we carry. And we diminish that by saying we're going to put ourselves at the back of the list. I appreciate today is Mother's Day, so people will be busy and, you know, there are things going on that may have been organized from before. But the thing is, if you do commit to the group settings, prioritize yourself. Like, this is your time where you just get to come in and you get to share stories, hear stories, laugh, cry, just have that support and be held in a way that you can't be anywhere else, right? Because you're not with your family and you're not with your friends, and they have their own roles to play. But when we have an independent, neutral space where anybody can come and join and be a part of, that is a very unique space for women to actually create and use power for themselves and for others around them. So you have to put it in as a priority, because if you don't prioritize it, you know what, nobody else will. They'll go, oh yeah, there's something going on Sunday, you know, you're going to go, and you'll be like, no, look, this is my time. Once a month, this is for me. I fill up on this so that I can be the best mother, the best wife, the best worker, right? What are you using in your life to fill up so that you can go and give to others? Or are you operating on empty? Are you operating onto this sort of depleted energy reserves and still trying to give more, right? So this is the other thing where I want people to really appreciate the gravity and the importance of this. This isn't a training session. This isn't a, you know, lecture. This is a healing space that is designed for you specifically to be able to heal from past wounds that are going to allow you to be able to move forward in the best way possible for places that you didn't even know were possible. So that's the work, right? So I do want people to be clear about this. And sometimes it's a little bit scary because, you know, you may say things you have never said before to anyone, which is very normal. People come into spaces I've never even told, you know, my spouse of like 30 years, but here I am speaking to you about it. People bring all kinds to the space, but this is why you have to own it, right? I can only take people so far. I can only facilitate based on how much I receive from what you need. So, you know, let's make sure that we keep that conversation going. Let's make sure that we continue to engage in what is most relevant, because it's through that actually we'll see the progress, right? It's through that you'll look back 6 months from now, because I can do that with the groups that I've set up. And I see where people are now. You see that. And when you can trace that back, you're like, wow, if I hadn't, then would I still be there? And that's normal, right? Like, I go and visit the UK every year, visit my family, my friends, and it's shocking to me how many people's lives are exactly the same from when I left them 11, 12 years ago. Nothing's really changed. But they will still complain about the same things. They will still talk about the things that are going on. And yeah, there's, you know, we have to be we have to take the driving seat of our life and not just sit in the passenger seat and go, you know what, wherever, you know, I'm easygoing, take me wherever you want to go. At some point, you got to get in that driving seat and you got to drive yourself to a place. But first of all, you got to know who you are. And that's where we start. That's where we start. We have to start with knowing ourselves, and we then work on, you know, the part around children, the part around others, and, you know, what we want from our life. But it all starts with us.
And Dean, that was absolutely amazing. I really loved that, and I've really learned a lot.
And I'm into your prayers. Absolutely, this is so important to consider. How do we go about healing ourselves? Especially, you know, we all have a way that our faith thinks we can, it either allows us to be able to heal those wounds, or it just prolongs it in a way where we think that suffering is somehow meant to be part of, you know, what we have to go through. And although, you know, we may be inflicted with some level of pain, emotional, physical, or however, we have to understand that the suffering, really, it sounds a little bit sort of cold, but it's also optional. Because when we find ways that, what am I supposed to learn from this? What was the reason for me to go through what I did? If I don't take that lesson, I'm just going to keep repeating it. And this is something also from God, right? The fact that I went through something is not an accident. The fact that I'm going through something is no kind of coincidence. It is happening to me right now. So what am I supposed to do with this? How am I supposed to work with it in a way that's going to allow me to become better for it? And that means you got to let go of the what could have been, the fantasy of what was possible, but looking at the reality of what is right now. And that is the situation where you're at. And yet, of course, it will require a level of patience, but patience in and of itself is not enough, right? Time can heal only so much. A lot of it has to be based on also, yes, the faith of like, I'm going through what, you know, perhaps I had to go through. But I can also make sure that I change certain parts of myself that may lead me to create more pain for myself. Because this is the other problem. When we don't learn, life keeps throwing us more lessons. You didn't learn that, did you? Okay, let's go. Here's something else. And then we go, why is it always me? These things happen to me. And then we just kind of lose hope in ourselves. That's because we didn't really take the time to sit with it and work through it, because we just expected as a woman, as a community, just get on with it, move forward now, you're done, let's the next thing. And so this is exactly the space to be able to sit still for a while and go, oh, what did that mean? Maybe I need to go a bit deeper. Maybe I need to go to a place which is so uncomfortable I may even have not even noticed it's there. That's the work we're doing. And, you know, some of it will be like this in a group setting where, you know, we work through things together, and others we will break away. I'll give you questions and you have to do that work, and you're going to come back and then we're going to talk about it. Because it's about integration of the knowledge and the learnings you get. It's not about gathering more information. If that's the case, I'll give you like an online course, go ahead, right? That's not what this is. This is about integrating fully within your body and your soul the learnings that you get. So the whole point is to get the aha moments. The whole point is, oh, I think I get it now. I see it now, because it has to be applicable to your life. It has to be relevant. So thank you for saying, you know, you're going through this. And because if I don't know someone is going through a divorce, I can't make it relevant for somebody like yourself. So the more open, you know, everybody is with the situation they may find themselves in, the easier it's going to be able to integrate that into yourself and to become better for it, which is the whole point of coaching. We unlock that potential within ourselves to be the best we can. But we can't do that if we pretend to be something we're not, and we're pretending that everything is really okay, right? And I got it. I mean, I know you're all okay, right? Because you're women. You're always going to be like doing something that's going to, you know, allow you to be able to move forward. But is it in a healthy way? Is it in the right way? Is it in the way that you want? And so, you know, thank you for sharing that, Fatima, because I want more people to be able to be open. Now I feel like I know you in some form, and I hope to get to know other people in that same way, so that, yeah, I can bring like more ways to be able to do that healing work, because it's multifold. It's so much, right? It's endless, in fact, right? And it's lifelong, but it's also can be a lot of fun, right? It's not meant to be just all serious and all, you know, it's supposed, that's why we're here together. We laugh and we cry together. That's the point. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Fatima, that contribution, and also the response, Anne-Line, has been, I'm just kind of listening and absorbing all the amazing insights, and it really is, it's all in here. You know, the world is all in here. You know, the microcosm of the world is here, and it's about understanding inside, healing inside, knowing what works best with your particular inside, and then that reflects itself in the world, you know. So it's really it's the most important work ever, self-knowledge of self, and then, you know, how that is now expressed in life, you know. So I think it's really critical work. I mean, this is why we've done this session, because we think it's very important, and we're happy that others also appreciate that. And I'd like to thank you so much. Thank you so much for a lot of people who stayed with us for so long on Mother's Day.
Yes.
Everyone was like, oh my
Thank
God,
you.
oh my God, I'm going to sign off. You know, people going to restaurants and still listening from having lunch with their mom. So I really appreciate, you know, your time, and Lean, I appreciate the time of all the participants. And you know, whether people said something or not, your presence is felt, your energy is felt, you know, you're part of the collective, and we also still feel that. And so we're really looking forward to some interesting sessions moving forward. I'm very excited. It's my favorite topic. It's my favorite area, because I just feel it's, if you kind of are able to kind of delve into these areas and diagnose and understand and heal and reflect, and even just understand and be able to name them, it's so liberating and it's so empowering. And it actually, for me, makes you even more centered to be able to give more of yourself to the world. That nurturing and that wanting to express and wanting to be there to support is just part of our natural state. But the more centered you are, and the more kind of self-care you do, the more self-introspection you do, the more centered you are to able to kind of, in a balanced way, hand out to the outer part of the circle. You know, when you take care of the inner part of the circle, you're in a more balanced, stable state to be able to hand out and contribute to the outer part of the circle. But when one is unstable inside for different reasons, then it's you can't, or it's not sustainable, or one breaks down, or, you know, there's a pause and you have to recover. I mean, it's constantly in flux anyway. But I feel knowing that helps one to be able to understand things, and the understanding gives one a sense of peace. Like, okay, this is what I'm going through now. I need to rest. I need to recharge. I need to pause. You know, my battery's depleted. Why is it depleted? I recharge. I'm off balance. You know, you just understand what the terminology is and what's happening, and that in itself is empowering, whether or not something is being done about it or not. You know, so thank you very, very much. Would you like to
Thank you. My honor.
Closing words, and Lean, from you?
Well, all I want to say is it really is my honor to be surrounded by women. That's the work I do, is the work I love. I don't even consider it work. I feel like it's really what I was put on this earth to do, and that's why I continue to do it. And so I really am looking forward to developing this part of the work with, you know, your cooperation and with Aziza, because, you know, I learned so much from it. I received so much from it. So it's really not one way, it's a two-way street. So thank you so much, and especially all those who contributed. And I really look forward to the next one.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of Sunday afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.